Hello, ladies and gentlemen. We are going to talk about day 2 of MSI. We have the second group being played out. Bilibili versus Rainbow 7, and then Golden Guardians versus Gigabyte Marines. Both of these matchups were quite one-sided affairs. I think generally my impression of MSI so far, it kind of reminds me, we're like in a pseudo 2019 slash 2017 meta. I think everything is so bot-oriented, it is insane. I think everything is revolving around the Zeri and the Lulus and the Lucians and the Namis and the Jinxes, and I feel like all of the roads lead to Rome. You get an advantage on your bot lane, you're going to do well, so both junglers need to path into bot. If you can find ways to pressure into the enemy bot side jungle because you have push on bot, you're going to do so. We see Nidalee gameplay, which is very good at doing exactly this, right? To siege under the bot turret. I wouldn't be surprised if we see some Gragas jungle too, because I think if Gragas, Gragas, for example, on blue side can do a Raptor, red, golems, go into bottom side, pressure enemy blue side camps, and then just throw barrels under the enemy bot turret. I think this is perfectly viable. I think that, that's why I feel like I'm getting really reminded of 2017, because I feel like if you are in a position where you're getting your bot laner ahead, and for some reason, let's say the enemy makes a topside play, I think that most of the time, the value you can get out of bot is just better. Of course, the condition is that you are capable of diving, but often we see these mid lane picks like Nautilus or Gragas, where they can either get prio and go into bot, strong 2v2, so they find threats together with the jungle, or they can sack waves even and just commit into the bot side, and then they're just very strong in team fights. Getting your AD carry out of the curve seems to be the name of the game. Bilibili versus Rainbow 7, we have a first game here. Draven, Silas, Vi, Cannon, Annie, Kindred. These are good targeted bans against Bilibili from what we've seen, right? This is a good start, right? Nautilus gets first picked. I think Nautilus getting first pick kind of confirms the whole rumor, right? That Doinby spoke about. Considering, Doinby mentioned that LEC teams are doing well. Like, Bilibili certainly, almost certainly adopted the Nautilus. Maybe not, maybe yes. Nautilus gets first picked, Zaira Khan, and then they lock Lucian Nami. Lucian Nami is very particular here because, the main issue here with Nautilus that he's going to face, and the reason why G2 are heavily prioritizing Nidalee, is that it's in line with what Nautilus likes to do, and Nidalee can definitely find pressure, but in top lane, most of the time you're picking AD top laners or tanks, right? So you don't want to be in a position where you miss out too much magic damage, and then, you get screwed over. But when you look in Lucian Nami, you already cover the magic damage department. Even if you play Nautilus mid with Nami, you already have a lot of magic damage. You can't over-index too hard on buying armor. You need to make sure that you have a threat, and Lucian, of course, with Gale Force and Rapid Fire and Mandate and Lucian, Nami E and Nami W, he does plenty of damage. And keep in mind as well that if you over-index in the area of getting physical damage, I think it's very different in comparison to over-indexing on magic damage, because Force of Nature is there, Mercs is an item that is very strong. Tabi is also strong, but it doesn't have the same level of impact against physical damage abilities, right? Because it's specialized to be good against basic attacks. While Mercs gives you MR and also covers CC, and that's something that's prevalent almost any game, right? An additional layer is, of course, Force of Nature is an item that before it's getting nerfed is just so good that it even counts as Void Staff, right? In essence, because you don't reduce the passive reduction of Force of Nature. So these are all things that are important. While you have on the flip side, of physical damage, there's a lot of there's a lot of armor reduction in a lot of kits available, like Renekton E, Jarvan Q, Wukong Q, right? And on top of that, there's items like Black Cleaver and LDR and Cyrilda. There's a lot of variety in terms of how you can penetrate armor. So if over-indexing on AD isn't quite the same, right? So I was very happy to see Lee Sin together with Nautilus. I think that's a more consistent pairing than the Nidalee, but we've seen a couple of Nidalee games so far, and it has looked quite good in the hands of Yike, even better in the hands of Jun. This game came down to just hands diff. I think Rainbow 7 had a good composition, but they struggled around the bottom side very heavily. Let me just pull up, a bit of a replay here. Let's see. We have Billy versus Rainbow 7, game 1. I'm busy, Elena, please. I'll give it to you after. I need to finish this up, Angel. I'll give it to you after. So we continue. We continue. The main story of this matchup was just that the player on bottom side for Billy was just better. I think here Baby Leons could have held the W a little bit longer to make sure that Odie connects. The timing was a bit off, and this gank, while Wukong is now, you know, slightly behind in terms of tempo. You know, the wave, the way it was managed was just favorable for Billy because he stacked such a big wave. And then, of course, Rainbow 7 got level 2 so late, so they sacrificed a lot of HP, and then Zun instantly reacts, makes sure that the siege here is on the bottom side. Another key thing here, right, is that Odie, he did red into bot side, so this is a very, very inefficient clear. If you're in a situation where you're stuck here in bot, and you have a circumstance where your topside camps are not cleared, you spending time here is really, really bad for your economy, and also for your XP. So we continue, right? We have the situation, they convert. Eventually, this game gets to the point where Lee Sin gets a very powerful base on Iron Spike Whip. This is a fast forward to this point. And at this point, I thought that Billy made a mistake for not basing, but Lucian does have 2 biscuits. They're sitting on a lot of gold. Zaya manages to base and come back, and they managed to get a lot of platings over this, right? So that's a trade-off. Either you're going to be here with fresh conditions, or you get additional platings. They are definitely leveraging the most that they can out of biscuits, so they got a lot of platings of the Zaya base, and then they stick around. You know, in a different state of mind, Billy could have based, and they could have been here on tempo with fresh mana, fresh item purchased, but then they would have less platings, and then they would be able to start Drake here on this window, right? But now, you know, R7 can actually contest and fight back a little bit. They are very behind on XP, but at least their conditions are better than before, right? But now Elk is sitting on a lot of money. He's very far ahead, and Zun is doing all he can to pressure around the side. They tried to posture for a bot dive, but they couldn't crash the wave on time. This is the wave where they can potentially crash, and that's where the issue comes in. This was very, very close. Heal was burned. And we continue. Zun just does the Drake and cancels it. And now finally we have the situation, bot wave is crashing. Zun has full control over this area, which is clutch. And now here finally we will have the conversion that is coming up. So I think in terms of how they sync things up, I think it could have been a lot better. Because I think in the moment where this crashed, I think that Nautilus could have been in this area, and he could have made sure that Gragas feels threatened to be on the next wave. I think it would have been slightly better. I think they could have made a situation where Wukong wouldn't have time to do his own wolves. I think they could have executed this a little bit cleaner. But then eventually, you know, this opportunity is not a door that is ever closing. And now finally they commit all the way. Gragas is showing on the mid wave, and they break the ankles of R7. The continuation then is CEO. He didn't get his level 6 just yet. His XP, you can see it here right below his HP. They're stacking a wave, Here's a situation that I wanted to highlight is R7 is now pushing for the Herald, which can feel natural, but in the context of what you can gain bot if the enemy is stacking a wave and you can get Dove, the Herald is not going to outvalue that ever. It's just going to be GG. So in this situation, they know that the enemy team is into top side. They got spotted on vision. CEO is, you know, very close to get level 6. He needs 1 minion. They're trying to punch. But they don't get it. He gets kicked before 6, and the game is completely over. We continue. Game number 2, Billy versus R7. We have the first pick Nidalee after Nautilus is out. So here's Vaya is out, Nautilus is out, and then Zaya got banned. Lucian is banned on 3. So the first pick Nidalee, I guess this is the pivot where I'm not quite sure why they decided to change up the ban, or why R7 decided to go red side. Nidalee, Rakan Elise gets picked, and then Renekton Jinx. They just slam Renekton because it has synergy with Nidalee, and I think they are also heavily considering sending Renekton blind in the mid if the comp really demands it. K'Sante gets picked on 3. I thought this was going to be just straight up flex K'Sante, but they send it into top against Renekton. I feel like if you're going to pick things into Renekton, there's probably better things to pick than K'Sante. I think that you can also consider picking Jace here to play that into Renekton if you feel comfortable. Play with the Elise jungle, and you're going to have like a contested 2v2 if that's the game that you want to play. But already, you know, I think in terms of the accuracy of R7's bans, banning Tahm here over Lulu, I think is a big mistake. Here I was also surprised that Bilibili don't ban affiliates themselves, but then again, I don't have Rainbow 7 information. You know, it's like, I don't know if he never played affiliates or if he sucks at it in solo queue and they feel like this is something that they want to invite. It's not like Rakan affiliates is that strong of a lane. And then in this particular spot, right, that Lulu is open because Bilibili, just because they're on blue side, they're going to ban after the enemy has banned, so they can always react. They ban Varus and they know they're going to be able to play Lulu, and I think that's... you know, very, very good. Hey, Yamato, I tried Navori on Rek'Sai, I felt really strong. You think it's troll? Sounds troll, because what other crit item are you buying? Like Shield Bow into... I think Prowler's Claw is too OP on this champ, dude. Prowler's Claw is way too OP. And you're going to hit the 40% crit mark of Navori just way too late, so... Collector. I'm not sold, my friend. So you're going... Prowler, Collector, Navori. That's a very premium build. Like, getting to that point sounds horrible. Okay. Aphelios gets 4th picked. Lulu, Jace, very good 4-5 lock-in. Double flex, Jace, Renekton. They can send Jace into Case Hunter, Renekton into Case Hunter, Jace in mid, or Renekton in mid. Aurelion Sol gets picked on 5. So I was very surprised that Aurelion Sol is going to be picked here on 5, because I didn't think that, you know, Aurelion Sol and Elise, they want to accomplish very different things. Sometimes it can be fine if Elise transitions Aurelion Sol to the point where it can carry. But the issue is you're playing against a Jinx, Lulu, Jace, Nidalee as well. I think these are champions that can, you know, pressure Aurelion Sol a lot in fights. They have very good range, and I don't think that... the main issue is that I think Jinx Lulu will just outvalue Aurelion Sol at every point of the game. They have just a strong matchup bot, and also I believe that the scaling is definitely favorable for Jinx and Lulu. So that's the issue for me with the Aurelion Sol pick, but I didn't really know how to save it here. I feel like you've already indexed yourself into like wanting to play this early game, and I think leaving Lulu open when you're showing Rakan is just a mistake. So... I think in hindsight, when Lucian is out, Xayah is out, Draven is out, and Nautilus is out, I think that you should just lock Jinx here yourself. Too many teams are allowed to pick 2-3 Jinx, and I think that's a mistake. It's like we saw it here too, right? G2, 2-3 Jinx. Aphelios gets first slammed. This could be a preference thing, right? Then you leave support open for 3. Here, Zeri was locked in instead, and I think that, you know, Jinx is just looking like the CEO of games right now, yeah? But blue side still has that same issue that you, in most cases, need to blind pick support, but the enemy picking Rakan 1-2 solves that issue for you. I think Rakan, generally speaking, is quite strong as a support, but if you pick it on red, you kind of solve a lot of the issues that blue side faces. There's the fact that they need to blind pick support, and there's many good answers into Rakan. So this is something we have to monitor, because I think that picking 1-2 Rakan it just solves the problem of blue side. Looking at the game, we have game 2. Let me just pull that up. Once again, it's just a show of the bottom side. The bottom side show. We had a little bit of a disaster start here where Elise decides to do her wolves because she gets pushed out of her own jungle, and Aphelios lost flash and a lot of HP, so he's coming out of base right now. And then here Zun, his idea was to save his smite, but the issue here is that Rakan has no reason to contest bot, so he's just fighting together with his Elise. Elise here took the planty over. I'm not sure if she dodged wards, and then Zun here is over-indexed into the bottom side and has nowhere to run. It was well played from R7, but you know, the fact that they had this ward allowed them to make a much educated position. Elise got the wolves, kept smite. Everything was favorable here for, of course, red side. So in hindsight, is it good to look for this invade? I think probably not. If they can fight you on the Gromp, you're not going to be able to manage the bot wave in any way that is going to allow you to secure the Gromp. So one way could be to sack bot wave and just go here with Lulu and contest, but I think that's kind of wonky, because if you're slow pushing Aphelios can also leave and he's not going to lose that much. So that's important to highlight, right? I wonder if the situation would play out different if Aphelios was on the wave and Rakan would have to like be there to secure him the 3 melees, but I think stacking the 3 melees for the sake of securing jungle is very good. Something I wanted to highlight for R7 is that I think Miru really played well. Like he completely smurfed on Yagao, and here Jizuke highlighted on co-stream that Yagao could have E-flashed and then one turret would hit Miru no matter what, and then he would flash out and then would have lethal. I think also First Strike is a complete troll rune choice against Aurelion Sol because you can proc it very easily, right? I think Electrocute, Conqueror, Phase Rush, all better options. I personally would probably play Electrocute, but I think in the end just don't play First Strike because it's too easy for him to proc it. So this is a terrible base here for Yagao. Thank God he bought refillable as a start, right? At least he has something to go back for. But the issue here is, of course, he's TPing back, no goal to spend items, and Miro is going to be able to crash this wave and have a good time. The wave that Miro is going to reach level 4 on, so Jace couldn't contest, and all things are good. Here Bin, he didn't crash wave number 3, and Bong managed the wave pretty good. We didn't get to see what actually happened, but Bin and Yagao, their performance in this game was kind of rough. I think that Bong had many angles to solo kill. I think the conditions that Miro created around mid were really fucking good. He was completely smurfing, really good conditions now too, revealable advantage. Yagao was completely fucked, needs to base. This was very well played by Miro. I think this was very impressive. The bigger issues, of course, come from the fact that bottom side is what it is. Elise is ganking top and is showing on top side right now. She's showing on ward, so Zoom can easily enter this. And, you know, this is a trade that will never be worth it. And Nidalee is one of those champions that even though you can't dive, Nidalee is one of those champions that can help you marinate the enemy into a position where they can get dove. Obviously here it doesn't matter because the conditions are just so bad. Just that Nidalee here, you know, just can pick up free kills. He plays it good, you know. Little EQ flash into out, and here he gets polymorphed, stopped, you know, put a little prediction on the W, just a polymorph into good Jinx traps, and already now it's like, even though you have an advantage top side, advantage mid, Jinx Lulu, having 2 platings down, having turbo base, it's just Aphelios and Rakan are just so fucked. And for plenty of reasons, right? Aphelios got fucked level 1. And then he just got completely pushed out. And then he was late to the wave. And then he tried to catch the wave and was getting harassed under the turret. And obviously there's a player gap, but also the circumstance was very hard for this Aphelios. He's playing Rakan Aphelios against Jinx Lulu. And that's rough. And then the Elise is ganking topside. He ganked topside, base into gank topside again. And Elise is just abandoning his bot side. And I think the meta will be just, you need to fuck bot no matter what. It's all about bot lane. It's all about bot lane. It's all about bot lane. Zun, all he needed to do was to just pass into bots, take it easy. His solo laners were kind of running it down. And that's probably the biggest question mark coming into tomorrow, you know. It's like, is Yagao's performance and Bin's performance something to be worried about? Probably not. I still think Bilibili should be favored against, of course, Golden Guardians. I think that the bot lane performance of Elk and On is something that is very dangerous. I think that Zun is mechanically very good. And Bilibili, for some reason, they reminded me of like vintage World Elite, you know, with Condi and Mystic and Ben, you know. That's kind of the vibe that I was getting. But the rest of this game was pretty much just a Jinx show. She was way too far ahead on the curve. She managed to get a lot of platings. Just look at that gold advantage, you know. That's a telling tale. The main concern R7 is just their bot lane performance, also how they drafted their bot lane. I think in the context of the current meta, this is not something that really works, in my opinion. So, we continue. This is a flashbang, apologize. Golden Guardians was given by Marines. So, I like the 1-2-3 here from Gigabyte Marines. Nautilus, Tristana, Gragas. Tristana can be played into Zeri, that's perfectly fine. Nautilus mid can be played. Gragas mid can be played. You have a lot of options here, and I think it's important to keep the flexes for as long as possible. Here, Viego, Ari. I was surprised by the Viego, right? I think Viego's a very strong champ. I think that his clear speed is really good. I think that my main issue with something like Viego is that he has a lot of natural counters that can appear in the game. Viego's very happy to play with some specific champs and very sad to play against specific others. Like you can think of Renata, you can think of Lissandra, you can think of tanks generally, right? Here, for example, you didn't need to pick Gragas, you could have picked Lissandra as an example and then drop and then find an AD jungler. Vi is out, so you can maybe play Wukong, you can maybe play Zinza worst case, you can maybe play Lee Sin. There's some AD junglers that you can find, right, to pair together with the Lissandra, because Nautilus can just go straight bot after 4 or 5 bans, right? So instead we have the Gragas on 3, and I thought that when they're showing Gragas on 3 that they're going to 4th pick a top laner and keep the Gragas Nautilus Tristana flex till 5, and then they can choose. But instead they revealed the Xayah, which means instantly that Tristana is going to go mid and Nautilus is going to go support, which gives, of course, Golden Guardians a lot of options here on 5 pick. I didn't think Set was too crazy as a pick, even though he managed to deliver on this pick. I didn't think Set is that amazing of a champion. Poppy blind pick, I think, is kind of crazy here. It depends on how strong Poppy is. I think it's too early for me to say in this tournament that Poppy is like giga broken. Usually if Poppy is blinded, it's because he has like turbo value against enemy champs. But I think Gragas doesn't care too much about Poppy, even though you can W his E, right? It's like Gragas can play around it and take his time and go into melee range and so forth. And there's counterplay for Gragas. Nautilus, even if you get like queued, if you queue and Poppy W's you, you can still basic attack out of it because of the CC. So it's like perfectly fine in my opinion. And then you invite the Gwen on 5. Gwen on 5 here is very strong. Good matchup, can be fine. Gaetan told me that if Poppy plays like a psychopath and trades with Sheen and so forth, that maybe she can find angles to win, but it's rare that games played just plays that enough. So if Gragas is inside of Poppy, like in melee range, then he still hits, right? So, looking at this game, I think it came down to a very important Drake fight that Gam chose to fight for no apparent reason at all. I have to give praise here to Golden Guardians over their ability to stay patient in the game. Like they played the game very patient, very precise, very little mistakes, and I think that they played out their winning positions better than any other team that we've seen so far. Obviously, we've had some really extreme, like one-sided games, and you could argue that those were more precise, but they were so one-sided that it didn't matter. Like think about, for example, G2 Game 2 against Loud, or Billy Game 2. You know, sure, these were very one-sided affairs and they just closed it out. But I appreciate that Golden Guardians' approach to the game. They limited the risk and they kind of walked it in. You know, I think that's very good. This game had a very dangerous start because there was a Gragas dive on top. Licorice was getting sliced and cut and tackled. Already the dive occurred. Licorice dead. No flash used. His base is terrible. Conditions of Gwen is fucking wonderful here. And then you had the situation where Golden Guardians was looking for counterplay here, but Gigabyte Marines managed to secure level 3 here, which is a big difference maker in terms of the timing, right? It's like looking at the bot wave, right, in terms of how it's managed. They're crashing the wave now, and then Viego is quite late in a circumstance where maybe, you know, you dive this before Gigabyte Marines manage to hit level 3. Maybe this could be a beautiful dive where you just kill Xayah and walk out. It could be the case, right, because even though we didn't see it happen, the Xayah has no flash, no cleanse, and this was obviously a trade that who he looked for, you know, with his set with Flash E. This is a big part of the champion, right? So they managed to get level 3 here, and who he doesn't press W, he gets killed, River gets pushed out, and this is a very, very good spot to be in if you Gigabyte Marines. In terms of the conversion, you know, I think the biggest issue was just how Gigabyte Marines chose to contest the second Drake. We're going to fast forward to that point because I think that's going to be the game decider. It will. I didn't really understand the choice to engage in this 3v3 on mid. I'm just show it to you guys too if you didn't look at the game. That was just that just the window, you know, the window of operation here is just, it was right after Rift Herald was slain, so you know that everyone hovered around mid. Zeri didn't show on the bot wave just yet, and Gigabyte Marines already made the decision that they are not going to contest the Rift Herald situation. And Golden Guardians recognize that Gigabyte Marines are not contesting, so they continue in the next step of the macro process, which is just, of course, contesting mid. Viego can be alone here, the enemy is not contesting, we can take it easy and move through. And then Zeri is doing a very good job here of crossing through mid, because Xayah could also cross through mid here, but the big difference is that Xayah is not level 6, she's 1 XP away, so she could probably get it on the wave, right? It's like, whoever wins this wave that I'm highlighting will be able to have access into bot first. And you can, I think in the moment where you send Xayah into bot and you want to push this wave that she's walking with, if that's your decision, then you shouldn't contest this mid wave. If Xayah crosses through mid, then it would have been better and then it would have been matched. But you have to pay attention to the fact that Zeri can open through mid. And this was a big mistake here from Gigabyte Marines. They hard contest here, and even though Viego's on Herald, Zeri is here in position. They managed to get the wave, the Q misses, and that was a bit problematic. And then Kati is very deep here. Xin also loses flash, and maybe he could die here if Stixie decides to commit all the way, but he wants to keep his summoners. Right? After that, we had a situation where the second Drake, which is going to highlight that. So looking at the position here, right? It's just Golden Guardians is already in position. They are sacrificing a lot. I'm looking at bot specifically, right? They're sacrificing this bot wave, sacrificing mid position. They're pulling it out. Already here, Golden Guardians position is a lot better. Tristana has no way of connecting, right? Golden Guardians is the mod better. They open through mid once again, and then they set up for this Drake, and they sacrifice the bot wave for it. I think here Gigabyte Marines should accept that this Drake is gone and done. And 1 second, Angel. Sorry guys for this interruption. So we go back to it, right? So this Tristana is in isolation. Golden Guardians did a better job of opening through mid. And here in this position, Gigabyte Marines, the most value they can get is if they contest, they take this pixel world, they make sure that the enemy bot lane needs Ahri to commit all the way in order to secure the enemy's passage into bot. And then when they do, Tristana pushes mid, and then maybe she can push her for it to poppy dive. But contesting this is a very, very bad and atrocious mistake. You know, they're committing and engaging on the set. They Nautilus ulted the set as well. He did a good job of just ulting that because he's unstoppable during it, finds everybody, and you know, he didn't get the W off because the CC chain was a bit big, but they get the fight and the value is insane and massive. And then after this, Golden Guardians just did a wonderful job of staying in the loop and making sure that they're always connected with mid and jungle. I think that Golden Guardian showed a very, very decent level of gameplay. I think they deserve props for that. Now the main issue, right, is just that the conditions of the Tristana are just so atrocious. She died twice, and Tristana is not a champion you can be behind on the curve. She's too reliant on gold, too reliant on level advantages. And the main issue, of course, is the fact that, you know, gold begets gold. And I think Tristana is the champion where this is the most true. She needs to be strong in order to generate gold. If she's strong to generate gold, then she generates more gold, more XP, and then she becomes even stronger, right? Her growth needs to be like, you know, It's like you need to be strong in order to become stronger. If you're weak, you can't farm, and you're just gonna fall behind in the curve of the game. And this is disaster. These are the type of games that just feel like shit to play Tristana. And he made the team made some egregious mistakes, right? It's like the fact that the contestation mid, I can't really blame the mid laner for that. You know, this is a team decision. Or it's like how they decide the contested Drake was atrocious. And Gordon Guardians were looking crispy. They were looking crispy. We continue in this game. I think it was just the Hu-He show on his set. There's no real horizon where Gigabyte Marines will feel comfortable in dominating this game, because in terms of what the gold is and the timing of items is in context of the soul point spawning, Tristana just won't be useful. And this is a game where Gwen is also itemizing Shadow Flame, and the enemy team is already showing a lot of MR. You probably need the Void Staff second and the Death Cap in order to be useful, but this game is just going way too fast for the circumstance for the enemy to ever recover. And Golden Guardians did a good job of converting. They find Kati on side, and eventually the soul is taken and the game is completely over. Here I think this was a crucial fight, because this engage is decent from Hu-He, but I think if Levi didn't E-flash and just Gragas ulted to disengage off of the set ult, this would have been a lot better. But instead, the circumstance that we have is that even though Gigabyte Marines are hitting Hu-He for free here, this Gragas is completely lost on the map, and he completely lost his fight for his team. So this is something that we went over in the last rundown. And that is, of course, you know, your team is already hitting the set, so all you need to do is take it easy. I understand the flash forward because he doesn't want to get caught in the set spells, but imagine he just throws Gragas ult here. It would have been wonderful to deny the set engage, and then set would have been hit for free here, and that would have been so much better. But instead, Levi is in trouble here. He's already committed so deep, and look at the line that his team is already creating. They killed set, and they could be kiting backwards, and they could have potentially killed set for free here without burning anything at all, maybe only Gragas ult. And that would have created some chances towards this Infernal Drake. Instead, Levi gives Viego a corpse, Ahri a reset, and, you know, probably, you know, Ahri, Zeri, Viego, these are champions you really can't int against. You just really can't int against them. You know, there's a lot of reset mechanics nowadays in League, but there's also a lot of stacking mechanics, right? So there's Ahri, there's Viego, there's Zeri. You know, Jinx is the most obvious one, right? Or Tristana with W reset. There's so many mechanics in the game that resets things. Ghost resets when you get a kill. It's like, there is an inherent snowball in fights often if one target dies, right? Of course, there's circumstances where, you know, the enemy burns too much tools in order to kill you, and that could be the case, but this was a pretty bad look for Gigabyte Marines. And then Kati with the W on the floor as well. We're going to game number 2. Game number 2, Gigabyte Marines. I was very surprised by their draft prio. This seemed like a full comfort angle. You know, Annie, Lucian, Vi, banned on blue, and then Rakan, Cannon, Jinx on red. Enemy team, first pick Zeri, and Tristana is something that Golden Guardians have shown to play bottom side, so they're keeping the Tristana flex. Viego being picked makes the Tristana flex a lot less likely, because then you need to fill with either AP bot laner or something like that. Odd Cannon ban. I don't think it's odd unless you know something about Gigabyte Marines, but I think Cannon has been permabanned pretty much in most games, except this one here, where Cannon gets ignored. They just first pick Nidalee, right? Here in a lot of cases we could see just Cannon first pick, but in a lot of the games Cannon just banned. Cannon ban, Cannon ban, Cannon ban, Cannon ban, you know? Cannon's very strong, didn't get nerfed. A big fan of Cannon because it solves the issue, right? So Cannon allows you to pick an AD jungler. Like, let's say you play Cannon, Viego, Gragas. That's a very good 1-2-3 comp, very strong top side. You cover all damage bases and then you rock and roll, right? Or let's say you go like Cannon, Gragas, Jinx, 1-2-3. That's a very powerful 1-2-3 and you're very flexible there, you know? You could either go AD mid with Gragas jungle, let's say with Jace, enemy has to ban Jace and go that direction, or you're just in Gragas mid, pick AD jungler, a lot of options, and it's very hard to pinpoint, like pin that draft in 4-5 with your bans. But okay, Tristana, Viego, enemy goes Wukong, Orianna, LeBlanc gets picked. You know, LeBlanc is a comfort type of bad champion, got a big buff with the Q change, right? And the cooldown going down when you finish minions. LeBlanc into Orianna, if you have space and Viego has pressure, it becomes very suffocating to play Orianna. Lulu gets banned here for the Zeri, of course, and then Jax. Not sure about the Jax ban, maybe it's something specific against Gigabyte Marines, not so sure. Rel, and then Poppy, and they go Amumu. Amumu has an interaction with his E that he reduces plenty of the damage that Zeri does because she has a lot of instances of damage. His E basically works like a block, right? And then Braum gets picked, which is perfectly fine. Probably Renata is a little bit better because, you know, only Renata is a little bit weak against LB, that's all. But I think that you have freedom here to itemize, for example, Mikhail's, right? To cover the MR basis, and you know that LB is going to most likely go Ludens, so you can get yourself some MR and play on distance. I think that Renata would have been good here. Good champion into Viego. Enemy's already like very all-in heavy and midi heavy. Weak against LB, but Braum is not necessarily that much greater into LB, right? Sure, you can block some spells, but you know, LeBlanc is just going to rotate those spells. And then the Fiora. Fiora is atrocious here. Disgusting. You know, you're basically just hijacking the draft and hoping that you're going to 1v9. But I think that the game is currently not in a state. Like Fiora, this is probably one of the worst Fiora patches in a long time. I think here you simplify, you pick a little tank, and you play for this, you know, bot side, and you hope for the best, you know. Make a 5v5 comp, go for a little Scion, and take it easy, right? And then, of course, it comes down to adjusting the Poppy ban for a Gwen ban, and then you're happy, right? Just ban Gwen here, and then pick Scion, pick Ornn, pick anything, and you'll be having a very enjoyable game. Instead, we have a Fiora. I wouldn't want to play Fiora against fucking LB showing Tristana. Like, it's just fucking, and it's blind as well. Atrocious. Just very bad. We look at this game. This was just kind of the Stixxay who he show. These guys were completely popping off today. The CLG, you know, the guys who made the run. They made the run. Kato thought Camille might be better pick than Fiora. Well, yeah, but you run into the same problem, right? You blind pick a Camille with Wukong jungle. Like, you're just going to be terrible. I think you just fucking lock in tank, you know? Lock in tank. Lock in tank, ban Gwen instead of Poppy, and you're very happy. I think that Poppy didn't have value here. It was only Wukong, right? And you were showing Orianna already, so you should be happy to play against Poppy. It's like Orianna's a champion that's very happy to play into tanks. So I think this was just a... Like, this looked like Gigabyte Marines were just looking to pick full comfort. It didn't really work. We fast forward a little bit to look at the decisive moments of the game. There was this fight in a river where the snowball began. Really like this movement here from Hui and Stixxay. First in to try, they're committing, they pay attention to River who wants to pressure. I like this a lot. And then Tristana is just marking Zeri's movement. If Zeri is going, he wants to commit. If Zeri is not going, he wants to stay. And then he just plays it to the ear. Zeri is not on the wave, so he's just hovering. And then they go all the way and they find the Braum snack. And Zeri was very indecisive here. Like, Zeri didn't push, Zeri didn't do anything. And this was because Tristana didn't show, right? Zeri is afraid of walking on the wave and then getting flanked by Trist. And, you know, the other side of the map is afraid of Trist too. So I really liked how Stixxay played this, just making sure that he's in fog of war. I'm assuming, I'm looking at the minimap, and I'm hoping that there's no ward here on Tristana, because then my point is so wrong. And Zeri is just kind of choking. Is that a ward? I don't know if that's a ward, guys. But either way, I think Tristana accomplishes both here with the way she plays. We continue. Sip from Giga Bottle. This Giga Bottle is empty. So I apologize. Thank you, sorry. I have a different bottle. I can drink from this bottle. Isn't GG drafting like they are still on LCS meta? Well, not necessarily. It's like they played 2 games into Zeri. Well, they played 1 game Zeri, and that was with a lot of AD carry bans, and I think that's pretty much standard. I think that was perfectly fine. I don't think they did anything out of the ordinary. It's like, of course, you have to draft according to your opponent, because they're going to also reveal a hand. It's like Orianna blind is very uncommon. It's not that he's going to be playing LeBlanc every game. It was just an Orianna blind with Wukong showing, right? So it's a very specific case where this played out and happened. In the end, you know, I think this game was just a very slow grind, and I think this Rift Herald situation is what put the nail in the coffin. There was a statistic that Guildbog brought up, which was between 15 and 17 minutes this team fights. But I think that the way to summarize that statistic is more that Gigabyte Marines like to contest second Rift Herald no matter what, because that's the window that it disappears in, and they open through mid, and it happened this time around too. So this is second Rift Herald is getting attacked, and Gigabyte Marines just funnel themselves through this location that we like to call the Satan's asshole. They funnel themselves through the situation, and then they get clippity clapped, right? And you know, it's like, it's okay to want to contest something, right? So they had to contest something because they gave up every single objective in 2 games. It's just that the Golden Guardian setup was just that much better. They were aware of the timings they need to base. They were aware of what mini waves they need to sacrifice in the group and contest through mid. And all the time, Golden Guardians was just first. Okay? And Golden Guardians just showed a much higher level of class. And I really like Huhi's reaction here. Right? Huhi's reaction here is to look for these guys, because they're all crossing through this choke, and they have these guys on vision. Wukong is looking to break out, and as they're breaking out, Amumu gets a fat ultimate, and that's beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Hey man, did you quit Sandbox? No, I am co-streaming the LCK together with Sandbox. And then you have very close situation here that Viego gets a reset and gets to pick up Wukong, but then it just turns into the Tristana show. Stixxay played well, and now the game is pretty much finished. Golden Guardians didn't leave a lot of room for mistakes, honestly. Like, I think the rest of the game that they played out was very clean and crispy, and I liked what I saw. I think Gigabyte Marines was quite disappointing. Quite disappointing in terms of who is going to be better. I feel like the summary so far for me, if I look at the next 2 matchups that are coming, right? So tomorrow specifically, we're going to have Bilibili versus Golden Guardians, and then we're going to have G2 versus PSG, right? So to start off the Bilibili versus Golden Guardians matchup, I think that just in regards to the expectation I have from Bilibili and the side that they showed themselves today, I think that in an isolated 1v1, Bin is going to do super, super well. I think Bin, he got ganked today, and those ganks were pretty pointless. I think if anything, the opening for GG is just Gory and River and Huhi doing a better job in regards to fighting around mid. But I think that Bilibili showcased that their control of a bot side is very good, and Elk is just insane, and On is just insane. So I believe that Bilibili is going to win this one. I think if Golden Guardians are going to find some breathing room, it is going to be through mid. But then again, you know, if Yagoat is playing the right champions, I think that nullifying the state of mid is going to be an advantage. I believe it's going to be a coin toss over who gets side selection, which is going to be essential. Bilibili showed 2 blue side games today, and Golden Guardians showed 1 red side. I think that the fact that Bilibili are really good at playing Lucian Nami, they can play the Zeri, they can play the Jinx, I think is going to be super good for them. And I think as long as you make sure that Yagoat is playing the Nautilus, the Gragas's, I think that there will be very little room for Golden Guardians to actually break them apart. But I think that Golden Guardians, if they manage to find advantages, I think that this is a team that can actually close out games. I just don't believe that they're individually good enough to create those advantages against Bilibili. And I think that will be their downfall. And I think that Bin will eat licorice alive, you know? And I think that Elk and On are going to perform better. I think Jun showcased that he can play, you know, some good champions. I think Golden Guardian showed good macro today. When they're ahead, I think that they can clean out the game. But I think it will be very difficult for them to actually get ahead. G2 versus PSG is a matchup that I have a less of a feel for, because here I have the fortunate advantage of watching. I watched all Bilibili games. I watched all Golden Guardian games, but I haven't watched a lot of PSG games. If I look at PSG in isolation, right, in terms of what they showed at this tournament so far, you know, Junja I know already from before, you know. I think that he is a very strong individual player, but in the series yesterday, I didn't think he was too hot, right? He did make a couple of mistakes, but I can forgive those mistakes, no problem. I think that this particular game, this game 2, looked rather rough, and I think in terms of support performance, I think that that's where Mickey is going to be a lot sharper. I think that G2 have a... Based off of these 2 games, I feel like G2 have a better read in terms of how they should manage their bot lane. And I think in terms of how you manage your draft bot lane, this is the whole meta right now. It's like, how do you manage your bot lane draft, and how do you make sure that you create a circumstance where your bot lane has a favorable matchup? Then again, you know, in these G2 drafts, they pick Nautilus and enemy picks Tahm twice on 4. That made life a lot easier. I think that the red side's biggest advantage needs to be leveraged into this idea that, wow, you can, you know, last pick support and have a good time, right? And then the idea of Nautilus is that, oh, you pick Nautilus and then worst case you're going to blind pick Nautilus support and you'll be fine with it, right? That's like the angle. And then they pick Tahm on 4. This made it very free. It's like, here is one rel game, Mickey 1v9, Lulu is also complete 1v9 here with Jinx. I think another question here, right, is that the G2 didn't show that they like playing Zeri Lulu. And I think Loud made a mistake here in their preparation, banning Annie. I think that's not something that G2 wants to play. Another concern, right, is of course the Nidalee. I think that it is a very tough champion to execute, and I really like Nidalee the most in situations where she has the room to pressure into the bot side jungle and she can actually siege the bottom turret with spears and create circumstances that they can eventually dive in, right? And I know that everyone's hyped about BB. I think he had a wonderful series against Loud, but at the same time, you know, I don't want to overhype a player based off of one matchup against a minor region, right? And that's not to flame Loud specifically or some in any shape or form. It's more about the fact that, you know, BB stomped the shit out of Robo, right? And Robo is a historic player, is a decent player, but you know, this is more of a note as G2 go deeper into the tournament, right? Still would be concerned BB against Bin or Zeus, but that's true for a lot of players. I think BB showing the Darius, you know, picking the Darius to make sure that his team can late invade was a very big plus. The Poppy was a very good pick. I think Broken Blade has had a fantastic, what's it called? Start. I believe that G2 is capable of winning. I think they should beat PSG, but I have to say Junja and Wako look very fucking dangerous. And my main question here for G2 will be, if Jinx... So it's like, let's say here, right? It's like, they first pick Nautilus. If Jinx gets banned instead of Annie, I think that they will play Lucian Nami 2-3 every game. What ring are you wearing? This is an Aura ring. This is a ring. This is a ring that tracks my biometrics. Not yet. Upset. Not yet. I'm assuming if Loud ban Jinx here on 3, then either Jitsu are going to answer Lucian Nami or pick Lucian Nami themselves here on 2-3. And I think that's the idea. And I think if Cannon is open and Draven, Lucian, Jinx is banned instead, then probably they will first pick Cannon and then they will pivot bot into something else. So I feel like Jitsu on blue side is kind of covered because I'm assuming they would be willing to pick Lucian Nami here and drop jungle. Very similar to the draft structure that Billy showed here in game 2. I mean, sorry, game 1. And I think this is still very, very strong, like Lucian Nami together with Nautilus. Because once again, like the main concern for Nautilus teams is when they first pick it, they need to find AP damage. So either they're going to play Nidalee or they're going to pick Lucian Nami, right? Lucian Nami magic damage is insanely high. So there's that. But I think G2 should be able to beat PSG. PSG did have some struggles, I think, in terms of how the mid lane of PSG played some of the fights. You have it tomorrow, right, Elias? Wait, it's today already? Oh shit, Wednesday today. Oh shit. So you passed. Yay. Good shit, Elias. Congratulations, man. Well done. I thought Wednesday is tomorrow. I wanted to hype you up tonight. But it looks like you didn't need it. It looks like you didn't need it. Well fucking done, man. We need to do that Voice of Yamato episode to catch up a little bit more. I miss you, Elias. You can talk to me about what are the plans for Vitality to qualify to the World Championship and dominate the summer split. Let's do it, brother. Okay, let's wrap this up. I think G2 blue side looks crispy and good. I wonder here what they would blind pick support in a case where YamatoCannon doesn't get picked. You know, that's my main question. I think the Nautilus draft is not too bad, but I'm curious what happens in a case where I don't know what if like the enemy team bans Jinx here on 3. They pick Lucian Nami 1-2 into Nautilus and then they go like Kalista, Viego. And then they keep Nautilus flex and then they go Renata, Kalista into Lucian Nami and then they play the game with Nautilus mid and Viego. That could be a draft, right? That could be like a draft. But the reason, Nidalee gets locked in here is because all of the top lane champs that BB wants to play are just AD champs. They don't want to be fucked on the damage mix, you know? But Nidalee is going to be tougher to execute against better junglers. I don't have a high opinion of Croc as a player. And I know that the Brazilian homie is going to tell me, Yamato, you lost against Loud. Yeah, I did. But that has nothing to do with it. I'm not competing, guys. It's okay. It's okay. Nevertheless, if you made it this far into the video on YouTube, bless you and bless your face. I'll catch you guys on the next co-stream of MSI. Thank you very much.